Hello, this is with Pennie on Tuesdays, and we have a special treat today. I'm not going to tell you who she is just yet. I'm going to wait till I bring her on the screen, but I am very, very excited to share this moment with you. It's been a long time coming, but I'm telling you, you have a treat. You have a treat. So, like I said, anyone who has not been here, this is with Pennie on Tuesdays, where we are keeping it real. Real women, real stories, real life, real faith, and real leadership. This is more than a podcast, okay? This is a sacred space where purpose, I repeat, purpose driven women show up fully, speak truth boldly, and share their journeys that shape them. If you are leading in business, ministry, or your community, and you just have a story that's just bubbled up inside of you, it's all over the place, you just can't help but tell it. This is your moment. This is where you share, and I am here to help uplift you and ignite others. So, like I said, this is your moment because your voice matters, your journey is powerful, and your story deserves to be heard because someone, probably a couple people, they are waiting for you. They need to be strengthened by what it is that you have to share. Now let's bring her here. There we go. I'm gonna make it nice and big and nothing filter. I'm really excited that you're here. Now, today our guest is Kristie Alsagar. How do you say it? I want to make sure I say it right.
Alsagar.
Alsagar. Thank you, because my tongue, I be spitting all over the place, so we don't want to get the microphone wet. Now, today she is a licensed professional counselor and the CEO and founder of Covenant of the Spirit. And I can't wait to learn more about that. I'm really, really excited. Today, we want to hear how she actually believes that the journey to purpose leads to vision and calling. And I think it sounds pretty good. I think it sounds right to me. So I can't wait to tap into that when we get in there. So now, Kristie. All right. She is a Texas-based counselor who approaches mental health with equal parts of clinical rigor and human honesty. And I have talked to her. She is very honest, which is one of the reasons why I just absolutely love her. Her work explores how emotional experiences, nervous system patterns, and physical health intertwine in everyday life. She is known for speaking plainly about hard truths. And I'm telling you those truths. I'm telling you that honesty is real. All right. She is helping people reconnect with their resilience and their agency, Kristie is deeply interested in system changes, collective wellness, and building communities where authenticity is safer than performance. Lord bless you. Okay. Keep her protected. At her core, she is a researcher of human experience, always asking better questions in pursuit of deeper healing, using her skills and knowledge to advocate for connection, change, and healing. Okay, I'm really, really excited to do this. Are you ready? Are you ready to jump in here, Kristie?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm ready.
Well, awesome. Well, first, good evening. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well today. I just appreciate getting to spend this time and space with you and your listeners and get to be a part of something that's got its roots in community. And I appreciate the invitation to be here.
You are a blessing. I mean, really, the pleasure is really all mine. I'm really excited to learn more about you because every time that we talk, it's like glitter just kind of comes down and something comes to light. It's like reaching inside a new treasure box. It's like, I didn't even know this was in here. Oh, you have these too? Like that's how I feel every time we talk. So I'm really, really looking forward to this. Now, this is going to be painless for the most part, but we'll just see what happens. I'm just excited. I can't wait to just see what comes up. Now, the first question that I wanted to ask you is, what vision or dream has God placed on your heart that continues to inspire or stretch you?
The vision that I have that has been placed on me for years, right, is one that allows for something to be built that actually brings healing in community. I believe that there's a lot of places that say that they're doing that, nonprofits, for-profit places like hospitals, and I just don't see it being done. I don't see there actually being connection to community or to culture or identity in a way that actually brings about healing. It's more about keeping a lid on certain diagnosis or certain people, and so that separation that separates us all. And I really wish that I could create that place that just felt like it was home to everybody. You know, if there could be animals there and people there, and community where if you felt a calling to just kind of dance out in the woods and under the stars, you're not going to be looked at like you've hit some sort of mental health struggle that needs to be medicated. It's a part of culture and community, and it deserves to have a space to live.
I already warned the audience. I told you she was honest. I let you jump in it. That sounds like a really nice place, and I agree with you. It's not something that's talked about regularly, but it is definitely the truth in all of those areas that you talked about. So thank God for that vision that's on your heart. Now, with that, you said it's been there for a long time. How long has it been there?
I'd say it probably started in my teen years. There was a lot of the times where I was the one that friends would come to for advice, and I had no business giving it. We were all kind of lost as teenagers, right? But I was just there to try to help them figure it out, even if that meant just holding their hand and being like, "Hey, this sucks," you know, like. And I went through an experience in my family where one of my family members kind of lost touch with reality to the point where they couldn't even recognize their own children, and that was about 10 years ago. At the time, I was going to school for a special education teacher, and I
Wow.
saw that in my family, we come from a medical background. So when my parents couldn't even figure out what to do, and they kind of went more into control than into acceptance, I realized that one of us needed to go back to school to get training and acknowledgement and what mental health really is and how that is a part of our actual health as people.
Wow. Okay, that has been a long time. Not that I'm calling you old. I'm just saying that is an early part of our lives. Like you said, we're usually just kind of young. What do they say? Young and dumb. And we just don't really think about things. We're not aware of it. So, but you were different. Everything that you just highlighted, you were clearly different than just the regular teenager. You were aware and paying attention and wanting to help. You said you already went to school for it. Yeah, you were different. You were a little special there. You were special there early on. Now, my second question would be, can you share a challenge or a breakthrough experience that transformed how you see yourself, your faith, and your leadership journey? What have you been through that just really changed things for you?
The most recent thing that happened to me was going into a psych facility myself. So, as a clinician, as a mental health professional, I have been working in nonprofits with children's and family members mostly, so the whole unit, as well as kind of young adults going into the age like into their 60s and 70s. And I'm good at my job. I really love my job. And when you have passion, you can see it. And you can tell as a clinician that you've also lived things and experienced things versus the ones that just come out of a book, right? The training we all get doesn't play out the same when you've had lived experience yourself. And this was another experience. This was another one that let me know kind of what I was being called for, because I had to be that clinician, right? To put people into a facility before, or to talk about what facilities look like, and had experienced it as a family member. But as someone that had to go through the system, I realized just how destructive it kind of is. And that did challenge who I am as a person, right? Did I want to continue doing this as a clinician? Was I going to look into something like life coaching? Was nonprofit where I was going to stay? What does this mean for my faith and my belief in God and where I am as an individual, and how much this has always been a part of my journey? I had to lean on the side of this was meant to be. This experience was meant to be. Where you are was meant to be. And how you're going to challenge the system because of it is now a part of kind of my rallying call to my places of leadership and where I've been in the community. You know, like I've done a lot of support when it looks like working for NAMI as just a volunteer, as an advocate, as well as being a leader in the community putting on Pathways to Hope, the conference that happens every August, and it's free and open to individuals that it has a faith-based kind of background, but it's about mental health and just how to be that person. And I've done that for the last 6 years since I was in grad school. So this kind of gave me an experience that made me realize where the gaps are and where the holes are that are not able to really bring a person into true authenticity of themselves and their own healing because of the limitations that we put on individuals while they're in a state of unrest or uneasiness, like trauma or psychosis. Your sound went out, Pennie.
See, thank you, thank you. I was like, I'm really amazed at how in depth your awareness is in any situation. You can kind of tell that you're not necessarily thinking about your situation just for yourself. You're thinking about the outside looking in and the observers, the long term, who else it affects. And I think that's amazing by itself. And goodness, you've touched so many things already. You're not that old. Like, you're not at all. You've touched a lot. So this has definitely been just in your DNA for a long time. Thank you for just being obedient and trusting what was always inside you. Because yes, you've done a lot of different things already. Like you really do have a awesome, awesome resume. Do you mind giving more details of what you experienced in this particular situation that I'm sure a lot of people just don't even know that you actually hands-on actually gone through? I'm going to jump off camera so that you can just really kind of hone in. I want to make sure that I am not a distraction for this story.
Never, but I appreciate it. There's the experience itself, I was taken in on what was supposed to be a 48-hour hold because my family members were starting to see that me being in a trauma response was going on for too long. I was present in my life and in my experiences, but I was not able to continue to maintain the day to day in a way that looks normal to everybody else. But I was piecing together a lot of things. You know, I was piecing together what my trust issues were back when I didn't have a voice, right? When we were kids, where my kind of faltering in my own self kind of went because I trusted the wrong people and I went down the wrong paths. And this was an experience because my mother and I had gotten into a place where she got physically aggressive with me and was removed from my house after I'd been her caretaker for about 2 years because she had gone extensively violent. And the officers that arrived on scene weren't exactly listening to the fact that I was her caretaker and this was disrupting my entire norm, like what I knew as an individual. But it was a couple of months before I really started to understand that I went into a place of trying to find my own strength again. So that looked like working out extensively. It looked like having conversations with individuals I hadn't had conversations with in a long time, trying to find healing in situations that I had been repressing or suppressing in a way that wasn't healing towards me as a person. And I had to step back from my job because ethically that's responsible as a professional to know that you're out of bounds and you need to take a step back. So I'd done all the correct things and I had continued to maintain my life as a wife and as a mother, but it was scaring the individuals around me. So it was a wellness check that had been called and they showed up and I wasn't in a defensive space. I was very aware of what was going on with me and I was able to use the terms that clinicians use, right? I'm in a hypomanic state. I'm aware that I'm in this state. I'm also reading into every little thing because PTSD gave me the hyperactivity and the hyper awareness that you start to read into people's body languages a lot more. You're able to kind of assess what danger looks like when you're in an environment just as much as kind of going to HEB, you know, like you start realizing where are all the exits? Does this person feel like they're not energetically aligned with safety? And I had gone into an extensive part of that experience. And so I had no place of animosity. I wasn't in a place of fighting. But because I had journaled, and that's a place of just knowing that you're out of bounds, you start to journal, you start to write. That's even what I tell some clients, is that's a way for you to know what's going on in the inside of your mind. Some of those journal entries are going to look different towards someone that's not of a clinician mindset, and it's going to scream, I need help, right? When I didn't and still don't believe that I needed the help in which I got. So I agreed to go into an unmarked vehicle. I had a moment where I was at my weak point, right, my lowest, and I was crying from my house to the facility. They took me to a facility called Cedar Hills, and they walk you through the process. They, step on a scale, put your hands behind your back, let me check and see if you have anything hidden. And they were running off the idea of what the police officers had told them, which was not accurate of me as an individual or my mental health and what my diagnosis as an individual is. So even going into the facility, they already had the wrong idea of how to try to treat me, but they were running off of that without actually talking to me. The first night that I was there, through my experience of trying to make, I guess, myself feel better, that I had been taken away from my children, I went for the exit. And in going for the exit, I was attacked by 3 orderlies. They are there to try to, right, control and subdue you. And in doing so, one of them had grabbed me by the back of my head with a fistful of my hair and slammed my head into the ground. And while he was doing that, he yanked up and had pulled out a lot of my hair. Basically, a fist size ball of my hair was now gone. And they throw you into something that is called isolation. And in that isolation, they inject you with medication that you can neither say that you do not need nor do you want. And they put you in a room where it's cold. You're now kind of the zoo animal behind the glass, right? They're watching you behind a door that is now bolted with 3 different bolts, and they're telling you that you are not okay. So when you're in a state of already a trauma response and you're already in a hyper awareness, this becomes a kind of life or death situation, because now you're in a place where your voice no longer matters. And so I was sitting there trying to kind of put everything together and was crying and kind of assessing, like, this is where I am now. This is what has happened from a traumatic experience that triggered me into my own past traumas. And this is what it's landed me in. And as I started to do that, I was rubbing the back of my head because it hurt from where he had grabbed the hair, and clumps of it was falling into my hand. So I was showing the person that was watching you through the glass that this is what was happening. And they did start to come over and kind of look at me through the glass and assess things. But they were not reacting in a way that shows that they realized that something terribly invasive and abusive had happened. And this is medically sanctioned in any facility that you're in. If there's a place where they rather use force than talking, that is what they're going to do, because they don't know how to de-escalate a situation. They only know how to control a situation. So I sat and waited until they saw that I was no longer functioning, right? They give you a sedative cocktail, and that's what they inject you with when they're throwing you into a place like isolation. So they wait until you're completely subdued. After that, they move you into what is like the overall facility, where now you're with everybody in every diagnosis and every experience that they are going through, whether it's psychosis, whether it's homicidal, or um, internal, self, like suicidal ideation. You're now with everyone. And the second that I walked in there, a teenage girl kind of walked up to me and wrapped her hands like around me. I hadn't even been in the door 2 seconds yet. And she was like, I am so glad you're here. And this is not somebody I know, right? This is people that are all in a state of just, they're energetically alive. They're awake. They are in a different state of being, and you can feel it. And so I realized that with my energy and who I choose to be as an individual and how I choose to show up authentically and honestly and transparently as a person, this was being read by a lot of people that were in that facility. So I became kind of the go-to person for comfort and support, but I was also supposed to be a patient myself. And that didn't happen. I actually ended up using my skills as a licensed professional counselor to be that person that started to write down real treatment plans. You know, like these people were being assessed by doctors that are still in training. They were giving blanket medications to everybody that were the same. And I was in a place of refusal to take the medication until I was given an opportunity to talk to a doctor. And I was in for over a week before they actually gave me someone to talk to, because I kept challenging the fact that I wasn't going to do that without an actual treatment plan. What a treatment plan actually looks like is taking somebody's biopsychosocial, which is their background. What is their trauma experiences? What do they believe culturally? What do they believe spiritually? What religion do they identify with, if they identify with one at all? What customs do they practice? What is something that brings them comfort? These are questions that are asked in a true connection with someone that knows what they're doing in mental health. None of those questions are asked in that facility. And a lot of them were social workers, which are trained differently than licensed professional counselors. We look at things clinically, medically. We have the background and the knowledge of what that looks like with using the DSM-5 for diagnosis and treatment planning. And there was nobody that was doing that for the individuals that were in this facility. And so I became that person. I was helping individuals. They heard my, me talking in groups, or me talking with other members out in like just the tables where they have you sitting all together, or lunch or breakfast, which you're going with everyone, male, female, doesn't matter. You're all available to each other. So that also means aggression with male patients that were not in their right state of mind, where they're an inch from your face and they're screaming at you about how they're going to beat you up. And you have to stand your ground, like you have to be there and be like, okay, like this is just the experience that's happening in this place right now. But you also find teenagers that are lost in their identity and in what they want to do in self-harm. You find adults that are in that same space that are just in a place of deep depression because they may be going through a divorce. And those individuals were all the ones that were coming to talk to me. So I was taking a crayon, because you don't get access to like a pen and paper, and was writing down all the information that they were telling me, asking true biopsychosocial questions, giving not a diagnosis, but where you could go to get help. What is next when you leave this facility? And I was doing that with many different patients, including myself, right? While I was getting time by myself and my experience in my room, I was writing down what I was experiencing, like what if I was in an anger state, if I was in a depression state, if I needed support, if I was realizing that I was getting triggered in my abandonment issues. I was having to recognize that by myself. And the individuals that are there kind of on the day to day were reading more like this is a paycheck than they were I realize that I am in a privileged space. Mental health is a huge privilege. You are in somebody's identity, you are in somebody's world in a way that you're not usually let in as a person. Like we kind of put up these facades and these different faces on what we want to have people see and know of us as individuals. And when you're in mental health, those start to break, those start to disintegrate, because this is somebody coming to you in a vulnerable space, and in one in which deserves care and attention that is not present in places like that. Not from that experience, right? I can't blanketly say all of them, but I can say that my family experience, that's just usually how it goes. They're just there to medicate enough to be able to say, okay, this person is sort of ready to be back out in the world. They don't even have to really be actually ready. It's just a place of let me medicate them enough to get them numb enough to make sure that they are then able to be released out in the world, and we're not going to be liable for something happening to them on the outside if they do choose to take their own existence, or if they go out and harm somebody else. Well, we're not going to be held liable because we did A, B, C, D on our checklist. And that's just not how people work. Every person, even with a diagnosis, is going to be individual. You're going to have to actually find out why this person has PTSD. And that's my true diagnosis, one that I had had for many years, and stemming from childhood and my CPTSD. So I had already known that. And so I had stated, this is what I have. This is what I know. What you guys are prescribing me doesn't take into account that this is what my diagnoses are, especially as someone who's on the spectrum, or has an awareness like I do in kind of the way that things connect in community. So my brain already does that. I call it like my spider brain. It'll connect things that maybe normally people won't connect themselves. And it's the way that I see the world, and being like, okay, well, if someone needs help in managing their family system, how do we get there using what they already have as their foundation, and what can I do as a clinician to help grow their foundational skills and then add new ones? And that's how I assess and diagnose and help an individual, because it's just naturally how I function as a person. So I was doing that in hyperdrive, being around people every day, all day, and it was actually draining me more than it was helping me. It was sending me further into a state than it was actually acknowledging it. And then, of course, since I was recovering from a physical abuse by someone who worked there, I also had to acknowledge that that individual wasn't removed from the facility. I still had to interact with them. So they still were in charge of taking my vitals and seeing how I am as a person. And it was very evident by the way that I was being treated by the nurses and the other facility members there that they acknowledge you as someone who is now someone to watch out for, right? Like it's, and that is even further detrimenting your ability to get support. And I saw it with many patients. I wasn't the only one. You know, patients that were being labeled as hostile only became more hostile because they were being treated as hostile. They weren't being treated compassionately or an awareness that they may not be able to control themselves, but the people who are working there have to control themselves. You know, like you are in this from day in and day out. And if you're not able to maintain the relationship with yourself that you need in order to be that type of person for somebody else, then maybe that's not the place that you should be as someone working in mental health. So I was talking to individuals about their faith and their identity and their fears while like brushing somebody else's hair who had lost a child and was being treated more medically as let's get her sedated than she was as addressing her real fears. Am I a good mother? You know, like, did I do this? You know, did I cause this? And nobody was answering those questions. Nobody was treating them like people. I was teaching new skills to individuals who didn't know how to sign their own name. I was giving hugs to people who needed hugs. I was having play fights with somebody who had too much energy and needed that social interaction. And so we were like Jedi fighting each other, and I would pretend to fall on the floor, or we would do music therapy, and I was dancing with everybody that wanted to spin around and dance, because that's what they need to know, is it's okay to be human. It's okay to fall down. It doesn't make you any less worthy. It makes you truly aware of yourself, and that there's connections out in the world. My apologies. That to me really showed me as a clinician that there's just not enough of us out there doing the job in a compassionate way.
Wow. Wow. One, for that to be the ending of your statement, you know, that it taught you about yourself and what's needed in the world versus cussing, screaming, pointing out all the negative things that's just, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. It says a lot. It says a lot about who you are. It really does. And how much of a treasure you are. I mean, everything that you just said, and look at you. I mean, you're smiling, you're still beautiful, and no one could tell that you went through that. And what's even crazier is that you went through that considering that you were already this person before you went in. So it shows a lot of how, even as people and as loved ones, we're not paying attention to each other, right? Because if you knew who I was, if they knew who you were, why would you even send me there? Like, you should know better. Like, you should already know that I'm fully capable of handling decisions. I'm clear-minded. I know what I'm doing. I'm trained. I'm schooled and educated in this way, you know? And it's amazing how we don't pay attention to each other, especially when things get negative or heated. It just all goes out the window. It goes all out the window. But one of the things that I heard you say, and I just really am just flabbergasted, Don't ask me how to spell flabbergasted, but that's how I'm feeling, right? You, my dear Kristie, God used you in such a powerful way. Like, you know how many books you touched through this, just through this experience? Okay, first of all right, you're Daniel. You were totally in the lion's den and didn't get hurt. I mean, all right, give or take the head. You lost a little hair, but you didn't get bitten and scrawled and attacked and none of that. Okay, like that's already. And then you got into the fire and you didn't get burnt either. You walked right into the fire behind enemy lines and you were nothing but a blessing. Okay, God literally. I mean, you were Paul. You were a prisoner, literally in there behind the walls and still praying, still being focused, still being who you were meant to be, regardless of what your situation was. It didn't stop you at all. It was kind of getting a little, tender a little bit. I'm sure it was working on you, but you never let go of your faith and you never let go of who you knew you were. You paid attention to all of that throughout this whole thing, and then you were used to do more. I mean, literally, God put you behind enemy lines, beyond the gate, and you literally were used to bring heaven into hell. Literally, like you went in there and you saw them. And with all the drugs and how they were trying to neutralize everybody, no matter the dark space that they were in, they still saw you. That's amazing by itself. The patients who were heavily drugged still could see your light, even in that dark place. They're like, she not like us. She different. We are safe here. She could hear us. It's like they felt and knew who you were, and you definitely showed up for them. Like it doesn't seem like at any point, maybe very small percentages. I'll leave room for that you ever questioned how you were feeling and how you were going to be, or worried. But for the most part, it seemed like you really did an outstanding job in such a hellish situation to be there, not just for yourself, but for everyone there. And I'm grateful to know you. I'm grateful and I'm excited that you made it out, and not necessarily unscathed, but with receipts, so that people could really, really understand what it's like in there. Because like you said, like even people just think, like the officers, they assumed this is what you did, this is who you are. Let's get our guard up. Just throw away, toss the key. And then everyone else there, they assumed without even asking any questions who you were. And then you were the threat. Now they are unsafe. In 2026 and moving forward, all of us need to pull together. And it's like you said, if you are in a position where you're supposed to help people through crisis, if the first thing out of your mouth is "I was scared," then you need to put your badge down of all sorts, whether it's a metal badge or a name tag. You are not in the right position. You need to make sure that you can handle the crisis, not actually be a part of it. So I'm really excited to hear that. I mean, and you did it with a dry face too. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I reminded myself while I was in there of Job, which is my favorite story in the Bible, and that place of everything was taken away, and that's what it felt like. It felt like I was in hell, and everything was taken away, and I was mourning the loss of what my identity was for the rebirth of who my identity is now, right? Which is still me, and it was a version of me anyway before I went in, but it's one that now understands why I've always had this on my heart and why this has always been a part of me. And I appreciated that, when I finally sat down and I was like, okay, Job got everything back. Like there's a place to really understand that we still have praise and we still have a place of worship, and staying in that mindset is what allowed me to get through the day to day. And it wasn't always easy, right? I had my moments where I faltered a little bit, like and I realized, okay, like if I'm going to get out and I'm going to get out in a way that is true to me as a person, then I have to be vocal, and I have to be advocating for myself as much as I would have done for a client that was in a similar situation. And I truly believe that that's what eventually what got me out, was me advocating to the point where I was like, I guess you could keep me in here for months if that's what it's going to be, but I'm not going to do what you're asking me to do, because you guys still haven't sat down and told me what you think my diagnosis is. Like what you think that I get a treatment plan for. And I finally got my demographic information. They didn't even have my birth date right. Like I was like, y'all had nothing
Oh my
correct in
goodness.
this file. So it was an interesting time, and I still think about it as a place of just how far I've come, and it's only been 4 months, 4 or 5
I was about to
months.
say a matter of months, right?
Mm-hmm.
I already know. Yes, a matter of months. Okay, somebody just did a double take. They're going to be like, "What? What?" Yes, a matter of months. No, that is. I mean, it's really just everything, and I just can't even. It really hurts to think about how many places run just like this. Like this is a regular day in the office. How many facilities run like this? And we know that it's not just them. I mean, there's a whole process that you're supposed to touch before you even get there. Like when they call the police to even come take you to the hospital, that's a process, right? The phone call was a process. The arrival was a process. The arrival at the facility is a process. There's so many different people that you actually encountered and had to go through before you entered hell officially. And it doesn't seem like anybody was doing their job. Anyone, but they messed with the right one. They messed with the right one today. Okay. Because you were able to go in there, and I love that you were not abused further, like held, and especially intravenous drugs, right? You don't even need to swallow those. There were so many other things that could have happened to make sure that they had gotten control of you, and God did not allow it. Like the fact that you were in there talking to them, they knew you were a threat, and they knew you were sober. They didn't want that at all. Mm-hmm. So they tried to wait you out, and you waited, and you called their bluff. Well, since I'm going to be here,
I might as well do my job while I'm here.
I'm going to need some more crowns, guys. Okay. I'm just going to write on your t-shirt. You don't mind? Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. When you were there, the way that you really just paid attention to everything, I want our audience to understand that takes a clear mind and a strong spirit. Because to capture those details the way that you have, most people, even if they weren't even drugged, their own fears would have already had them clouded. It would have already had them clouded. And the way that you were able to see those different things and discern and be strong, you have to have a clear mind and strong faith to do that. Everyone can't do that. And I hope that you really do understand how powerful that testimony is. I mean, I know, it's a regular Tuesday and you're just kind of, going through life and you done picked up the pieces and you're taking care of family, you're taking care of home. But I'm like, how many people even know about this, Kristie? Like, how many people have you even shared this with?
Not very many. I can't even really talk about it in a clear space of my family members. And I have written about it on my LinkedIn, right? I am now using my voice as a way of like,
really?
We need to change mental health as a system, because I realize just how many times that's the solution for people, or that's the hope for families, is that they're going to get their loved one into that facility, and that facility is going to do what they need, and it's not,
Mm-hmm.
The likelihood of them actually getting that service is very, very slim. And yet that's something that they're talking about right now in some of the meetings I'm in, is we need more beds for more people, and right. We don't have access. And I'm like, okay, but when you get those beds, are you going to get actually clinicians that know what they're doing? Ones that are able to be in a space of love and compassion for the person that's right in front of them, not one that's busy over a clipboard, or that you've drowned with too many patients that they have to see from back to back. Somebody that's actually going to be able to give that time and energy to the individual that's there, because there is a lot of people behind that person, right? It's not just that person that you're treating. It's their right. entire family, that is like, I'm hoping this is what brings my loved one back to me. And in my experience, right. being the loved one on the other side, that's not the case. It just is not. And sometimes they're so medicated that you get somebody that now looks like a shell of your loved one. Like they're empty inside. Their eyes are dead. Like there's just no more light in them. And that's what I was avoiding while I was in there, was being like, I refuse to come out a zombie that isn't going to be able to be there for my children. Like that isn't going to have the wherewithal to get out of bed, that I'm just going to want to sleep all day. So I was still, doing push-ups and sit-ups to keep myself active, like
really, you were doing it? Really?
I was really in there doing like push-ups in the hallways, and like like the little old ladies that like walk really fast in this one little, it's kind of like a boomerang setting. You're just kind of like one hallway to another hallway, and that's the only place you have to go. So I just kept walking it, and other patients would walk with me and be like, what are we talking about and doing today, Kristie? Like, whatever you want. I'm just doing my laps.
I would have absolutely loved to have been, not a fly on the wall, but love to have been there to just witness this miracle happening. Like, really. And you just reminded me of a situation that a lot of people don't know that I've been through. And you know what? I'm sure you don't know either. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, that's right. You just go on about life. So, before now, I was completely disabled, like on a cane, going blind, brain tumors, couldn't walk, right? And one of the things that I would go through would be paralyzed spells. It was very similar to Guillain-Barré syndrome. You've ever heard of that? But a lot of people haven't heard of it. But I would go through these spells where it would start from my feet and it would come up where the body would just start shutting down. I would feel tingling from my feet, and then as it raised, it would work, and it would kick in within a matter of like minutes. Within 15 minutes, I could be a vegetable for 2 days. For 2 days, not be able to talk, unconscious, sleep. 2 days. Like the first couple times that it happened to me, because I had like 6 spells. The first couple times it happened to me, I was at home just thinking something weird was going on, and I couldn't explain it. But as it progressed, it would kick in faster. And I remember being at HEB like, something's wrong. Everything in me was like, if I don't go home right now, like leave the food, get the kids. If I don't go home right now, you're not going to make it. And I lied to you that I felt it when I got into line. I felt my feet tingling. And I was like, I felt this before. Hurry up, left, got in the car, got home. I was like, I want to take a shower, got in the shower. And I lied to you now. I had to call my son. At the time, he was probably 12 or 13. I had to call him to come pick me up out of the tub. I could no longer move, like put me in the bed, get me dressed, done. And I didn't tell anybody because I was afraid. I was like, they're going to take my children. If anyone finds out it was just me, I'm like, if anyone finds out that I'm having this, they're going to take my kids. But I would lock my bedroom door. They had strict instructions, like stay here with mommy. If I'm not breathing, this is who you call, full instructions. But I told my mother about it one time, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And it's happening, more often and closer together. She's like, all right, if you're having seizures or something going on, you need to go to the hospital. They need to be able to put you up on a machine so they can read what's going on. I was like, okay. The first time I went, I got to the hospital, the emergency room, waited like 8 hours. Just, I'm just like, I don't even feel it anymore. Like, I don't even want to be here no more. They put me on the machine and they could only see like remnants that something was going on with my brain, but no real proof. We don't know what you're talking about. Okay. I felt it coming on again. All right. We need to get some receipts. We need to find out what's going on. I go into the hospital again. Same thing. They didn't see any receipts. And I just so happened to be listening to them this time. And I wanted to copy. I'm like, I want to read what my tests are saying. I want to see if I can read it myself. It was like pseudo something. And, pseudo, you just kind of made this up. It's not really real. We don't really see it. And I'm like, anybody who's seen it, especially my children, can see that I am in a full-blown, almost comatose state for 2 days. So I read it. I saw that, and it hit me as they don't believe me. But I need some type of proof because something's happening. This is another time that happened. It was coming more aggressively, but this time I had my kids with me because it was happening to me outside, and my husband. I'm like, take me to the emergency room right now because it's kicking in right now. Let them watch it happen, and then they can believe me. Kristie, of course you do the emergency room wait. They're walking past. I'm not bleeding. It's not a gunshot room. It's not my heart. So no one's paying attention to me. And I'm like, I need to be seen because now my legs are gone. Somebody get a doctor because when it gets to here, I can't talk anymore. My breathing slows down at here, and here I can't talk. Here I'm unconscious. I need to get to a room. I get to the room, and they lay me in the bed. I feel it at my stomach. I'm already telling my husband because I'm trusting the process. All right, I finally got here and they can see this happening. They've got to believe me. You guys, I'm in perfect hands because I'm at the hospital. If anything happens to me, I'm at the hospital. Go ahead and take the kids home. It was on a weekday. Take them home, homework, dinner. I'll be fine. My family leaves out the door, and I lie to you not, I hear the nurses outside of my door. My eyes don't work, but my ears work really good. I hear the nurses talking outside my door, and they're like, yeah, she's probably going to be waiting for a while. The doctors are busy. They're not coming down. But in the meanwhile, we're going to send her to the 5th floor. We already know 5th floor, psych ward. So when I'm hearing this and I'm like, they still don't believe me. Like my legs don't work. You know what I mean? Like things are happening right now and they're still not listening to me. And I hear them talking. The doctor's not in a rush. 5th floor. I'm like, okay, no. Before my kids left, I had them put my phone on my chest. And my hands are already like going down to my wrist. I can't really lift them. And all I keep thinking is, if they're not listening to me while I can still talk, watching me pretty much decrease in real time. When they get me to the 5th floor and they drug me, and I am highly allergic to everything. I can't take a Tylenol or nothing, no opioids. I mean, not breathing, hallucinating, allergic to. If they get me to that 5th floor, they're going to kill me. I'm not going to see my kids more if I get to that 5th floor. So I prayed and I was like, God, give me the strength. And when I tell you that I was in there like doing some, what is that movie? Like trying to mind over matter, get my finger to work. Like mind over matter, like I can do this. I can do this. I done seen this in Chinese movies and I can do this. Like trying to get my finger to work. I finally got my finger to get to my phone just enough to push it. And luckily I still had the earpiece. It was still in my ear for them to answer. And I was able to catch my husband on the way to the garage. And they were coming out of the elevator. And all I could say literally was 3 words. Come here now. And I could no longer talk. He was on the phone like, Pennie, Pennie, Pennie. Hold on, kids. I could hear him and I could no longer talk. And luckily they were able to get to the room right as they were bringing that bed down the hallway to come pick me up. I was like, I mean, they luckily he honored everything in him knew to just take me home. Like he came in there, I couldn't talk anymore. And he's like, what's the matter? What's the matter? And my eyes must have said it. My eyes was like, get me out of here right now. That's the only thing I do, like, get me out of here. And then I don't remember anything. I woke up at home. And that's exactly what you're talking about, where it's like you're there in the hands of people who are supposed to take care of you. And they're not listening. They're not listening. There's a motive. And it's more dangerous than being at home. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people worried about money in healthcare, but there's a lot of people that's just worried about going towards the people who are supposed to take care of you and not coming back home. Like that's a fear, a huge fear. And a lot of people don't talk about it, especially not in the hospitals and facilities themselves.
I mean, and we have history of that happening where they were used as, guinea pigs in the hospitals and by doctors, especially in the African-American community, so it's not like these fears are not warranted. They're warranted, and they're still warranted because we're just numbers, we're just numbers in a system, in a computer that is just logged as whether this is something that they can charge to an insurance company or whether this is something that they don't quite understand. And when it comes to mental health and things of the brain, because if you had tumors and everything, that's a brain thing. And they're just like, well, this is too scary. Like this, we don't know how to handle this kind of thing or what to do with individuals that are in a trauma response or in a situation where we're seeing them now, get shot by police officers and get killed by police officers. So I went without fighting. And I asked, what is the hold, right? Because it used to be 72 hours and it was only 48. So he was like, no, you're not combative. You're not yelling. You're not doing anything. You should be out in the 48 hours. I was held for 12 days, like,
Okay.
and it was an awareness that they will say anything and everything to get you to comply without giving you a real reason to gain that trust and support of the
Mhm.
system, like, and there's a lot of people that even though they don't trust, they're like, this is my last resort, like, so I just want to go somewhere that's going to help me because I've been in an active addiction for 10 years, or I met individuals
Mhm.
that were unhoused, that were in that facility, and it was like I already knew and they already knew. I'm gonna drive around and try to find them at some point because they're just gonna go right back to being unhoused. They're not getting real support. They're not getting
Right.
a real treatment plan that's
They
dealing with
know
their
no one's paying
addiction.
that bill.
Nobody is doing
Mhm.
anything other than, all right, they're medicated, they're good to go. Like, and that's just, we have taken human out of being with each other. Like, we've just
Yes.
we've just made it to where everything is robotic. Like, everything is automated, and I just don't understand how we have gotten this far as a society. And then you look further into our politics and you're like, okay, we have lost we've lost the plot completely on what it is to just be human beings with one another. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
we would still do the same things that we did with our Lord and Savior. Like, he'd be crucified again today. Like, I don't feel that we've come all that far as human beings.
Yes. Yes. I mean, really, and that, I mean, how appropriate right after Passover and Resurrection
Hmm.
weekend. Like, you are absolutely right about that. He totally would. He totally would. And it would be worse. It would have bigger crowds because it would be on the internet. More people
Hmm.
watching. Everyone would be sitting there watching Jesus with their phones as this is going on. It's so much worse than it was then. It really is.
Yep. They
And I
charge
like
money for it.
that.
Come see it. Come watch it.
Really? Uh, yes. Keep them alive long enough to just stretch the stream. It's really bad. But I like that you pointed out where it's one thing that, if it happens in an unhoused community, a different culture, but you're supposed to be the exception, and it happened to you. And then not only that, you're a woman and you're not that tall. You're not that robust, like you're a small figured woman, and they still had the nerve to call you a threat. But we already know who's ultimately in control. Okay, you just snuck through them doors. They probably don't even remember what they did to you at all because you was totally used to get behind the gate and bring back everything that you just did. And I'm, like I said, I'm grateful for that because that's just an experience. You're giving more reason to why everyone should be aware of what mental health cues look like, and as well as what spiritual cues look like. Because if you can recognize it at home, then you won't get other people involved because you'll already know what may or may not need to happen. Like, you're going to have a stronger discernment before you just pass over the baton. Like, and we need that individually. We need that. Now,
Right.
I want to switch it up just a little bit, and it may be different for you. I'm not sure, but I want to know if there were no limitations or barriers at all with your leadership. What is it that you would want to create or change with your leadership and with the life that you are creating? No limits, no barriers. What would you do with your book? I'm handing you the
Oof,
pen.
that's a good one. And no limits and no barriers, right? We don't have to claw our way to some sort of invisible top.
Hmm.
Um, I
Like, what
would
would be
love
your legacy?
I would love to bring other people with me. Like, I would love to use others' voices, not just my own and my own experience. It's a lot easier for someone like me with my training and understanding to get into certain doors and certain spaces that other people can't. And I acknowledge that privilege, but I also acknowledge that even with that, right, there's the large responsibility of bringing others with you, right? We don't need the ladder anymore, right? There shouldn't be a glass ceiling. Like, there should be a place where we are able to bring in community, and that's ultimately what right, if I could just disappear tomorrow, if I could just go somewhere, like, you won the lottery of $1 billion, Kristie, what would you do with it? I buy land and build space and invite people, like, do you want to come and just be together? Like, you show me your
Mhm.
culture and I'll show you mine, and we'll, dance under the stars together, and we'll find what grounding techniques really look like, right? Because it's not, we always like to say breaking the stigma. We aren't
Mhm.
trying to break the stigma. We're trying to break the chains. Like, we are being chained and kept behind bars as people. And
Hope y'all
a
heard that in
large
the
part of
back.
our a large part of our population are being put in jails, and they're put in jails just because they're in a state that they don't quite understand themselves, or they have family members that are scared, or they do something out of necessity because they were hungry or they were in
Yes.
fear of their lives, and those people are not given a fair chance. So if I could do anything tomorrow because I won the lottery, I would create Covenant of the Spirit of that safe space, because that's I came up with that name, and I came up with finally my vision and my idea while I was in my hyper awareness state. I had picked the name years ago, but I was
Really?
like, what am I going to do with it? Yeah, what does Covenant of the Spirit mean? Because it was kind of given to me as like the name, right? It was given to me while I was like in deep study and in deep meditation with God, and in prayer. And it was like Covenant of the Spirit, and it is a covenant of my own spirit to be whatever it is that I need to be, right? Like, it's not just using my experience and my voice, but me as a person, right? Like, if I could go back and carry the cross with him, I would. Like,
Mm.
if I have to with other people because I see something's going out in my front yard, I'm not going to be someone that's just going to turn on their phone and be a bystander effect. I'm going to get in between
Right.
them and be like, whoa, right? Like, this person is not in their right mind. We don't have to, be holding them down by the neck or put their, knees into their backs, or point their gun at them like that, because you're actually only sending them further into their fear response, their trauma response, and
Right.
you're the one that's provoking what's about to happen. Like, and that was seen even by the people, right? We have the teams that come out with the police officers, the ones that are supposed to be counselors and trained, and they
Mhm.
were also not in that state, right? Like, they're working off of an idea of what it is to be with a police officer unit rather than police officers being with them, right? Like, because they're the ones that are trained, they're the
Thank
ones
you.
that have the
Thank
awareness. And I really wish that if I could use my voice and my leadership to get somewhere that actually acknowledged that in our city, especially as we are going to create like the entertainment district, and we're gonna make it impossible for people to buy housing here, then we're only creating more problems, more
you. More stress.
unhoused, more people in mental illness, more
Mhm.
stress, and more people that are going to fall victim to addiction, like, that are going to fall victim to overconsumption. And
Yes.
it's going to trigger more and more people's mental health into a state that we are just not ready to. We're already at capacity that we can't deal with. So we need we need help, and we need understanding, and we need somebody that's willing to sit down and say, give me all of the information that the city already has on this stuff. They have already initiatives on mental health. They already have things that they're doing with NAMI and trainings. Where's all the
Mhm.
data that you can give someone like me whose brain works in hyperdrive on connecting all of those things? And can we say, let's connect this to that and this system
Right?
to that system
Ping,
so that we can
ping,
take
ping,
out the
ping.
gaps? Exactly, because it's the gaps that are making people fall into the holes. Like, it's the people that, okay, I trust going into this facility here, or this small community organization here. I don't trust the larger community. So where's the person that
Mm.
is working at the smaller community organization that has a connection to the larger hospitalization, that is able to do continuity of care, right? It's not just passing off one person to another person to another person to another person to another person. You need
Right.
the first person of contact is the person that needs to follow that person through the system, right? Like, I saw this
Mhm.
person when they were at
Thank
their
you. Like a
most
warm
harm.
call.
Yes, like, why was that police officer that was there that took me in not the one that followed up later? Like, where is the care of, oh, I remember what that was like for that individual there. I wonder how they're doing. And that was something I give to one of the sheriff deputies. He found me on TikTok, and he did ask me, like, he was like, I remember you. And he's like, and I remember you saying while they were here, like, that I don't trust facilities, and I don't think a lot of people, even as a clinician, I understand why they don't. And he was like, as an officer, I hear that all the time. Could you help me get more informed? Could you help me understand how to be a better sheriff deputy? And I was just like, oh my God, thank you. You know, like I've never
Right.
had somebody realize that like they're in a position of power and of influence, and yet they're in such a place of humility that they're like, hey, you struck something with me. And I wanted to, like, I found you on TikTok, and I'm hoping it's okay that I private messaged you so that I could ask you, how do I become a better sheriff deputy so that I don't re-traumatize people when they're in vulnerable situations. And so I gave him like a whole thing. I was like, thank you for doing that. And here's A, B, C, D, and how you can get started. But really, you as a sheriff deputy, your voice is powerful. You know, like your voice and your experiences, we need at council meetings. We need in
Yes.
situations of leadership. You know, like if you can get somewhere as a sheriff deputy, maybe you should run for being our next sheriff so that you can be the person to say, this is what is needed because I've done the work. And I was like, so I appreciate your humility and your honesty and your vulnerability by coming to me. And it was an awareness that I got to at least tell somebody that was on the other end of that, that
Mm-hmm.
we should always have that kind of care about ourselves, right? Like, how can I do better? And that's what I was doing as a clinician. How can I be a better clinician through this experience now? You know, like how do I work with my families and with their family members and with adults that are in this situation differently now that this experience is something that has opened up my eyes in a different way, you know, like, and I had already had that in my familiar, like, family of origin experience, but having it on a personal experience and realizing just how much we still have yet to learn. And there's so many hot button topics that people like to use with mental health, like ending the stigma and what domestic violence looks like. But it all comes down to, how do we really connect to one another? How do we really show what true relationship with masculinity looks like? What is it to be feminine? You know, like what do we show in our
Yeah.
connections with ourselves and our neighbors? You know, like, and why do we come from a place of judgment rather than a place of connection, right? Like now I have to
Yeah.
navigate what it even looks like walking out my front door because my neighbors have now been privy to the things that were in my personal life at that time, right? The police officers
Mm-hmm.
showing up, that ostracizes somebody in a neighborhood, you know, that ostracizes somebody as an individual. And other clinicians now see me in a different way because I'm being more vocal about things that they never even thought of, you know, like because it wasn't something that they had experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's an interesting place to be as an individual, because I realize even in like our wheel of emotions, right? Like I have it even on my desk, how we teach kids, like what is fear, what is sad, the different words for it.
Mm-hmm.
Manic is actually underneath genius. So like we
Yes.
don't
Thank you.
exactly, which is, it would have been, you know, people that we've even said that about. Albert Einstein would have been seen as
Look,
someone that was manic.
I'm gonna take a copy of that because I'll be talking about that. I always tell folks that, look, be careful of the names that you associate yourself with because that's not what it means. Like when people are like, oh, I have ADHD, that is a superpower that you can think of 4 things at one time. Like it's not
Yes.
a handicap. It's not.
Mm-mm.
Like people just think they just eat what's being force fed to us. And it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
no, if you change the wording and you really look at what it is that you are doing, like you said, we are all on some part of this spectrum, but what are your gifts? How does your mind work? How do you learn? How do you teach? It's like, it's not what they are telling you it is. It's not. It's really not. And it's very, very powerful. And they don't understand it. You know, science and spirituality, two different things. Two different
Mm-hmm.
things. So I love that manic and genius is on the same thing. It's like, I'm gonna need a copy of that. I'm gonna need a copy of that because it's like it's so true. Like
Yeah.
some of the most artistic, intelligent people are the most awkward because you
Yes.
humans are slow. Like they can't unsee it.
The
They can't
labels were
slow
supposed to be
down.
there to help. That's what the labels are supposed to be able to let other people know, this is what I need in communication. They were not supposed
Mm-hmm.
to be there to be a hindrance, and they are. They're a huge hindrance. You know, like you
Yeah.
tell somebody that you have bipolar disorder, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay. You know,
Right. You're supposed to get
you
understanding.
but it's supposed to be a place of just understanding how to connect. The label is not meant there to be a separation from yourself or the world, and yet that is the way it's being taught. So that is the way that people are reacting. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
when I realized that they were giving the exact same medication to every single person in there, I was like, every person here cannot all need lithium. You know, right? Like that is just that is
absurd.
statistically and percentage wise just not likely, like it's just not. How is that ever going to be helpful if we're just sedating and medicating rather than understanding? And I did go into another place where they wouldn't give me paper to write on at one point, and they had paper over the lights in the nursing unit. So I grabbed one of the papers down from the nursing unit so that I could write on it. And they tackled me and put me back into isolation again. And like at that point, when they injected me, and I was like, no, I can't take it anymore. They injected me twice in one day. And so they gave me a sedative cocktail at my weight, which at the time was like 130 pounds, twice. So I felt it in my chest, like I can't breathe, like you, I don't take, I'm not allergic to them, but I don't take Tylenol, right? Like I do not take pills, and I've never taken them. So when they gave me something like that, my body was like, holy
Like,
cow,
what
like
is this?
what is going on? You were like shutting down. So as soon as they let me out of isolation, I ran to someone else and I was like, can I have your bag of chips? Because I need to get my blood sugar up. Like, can you give me some juice? Like, cause I can feel that like I'm not okay. Right. Like
Right,
I'm
like
slipping
it's just
into
going
something that
down.
is just bad. And I was like, y'all could have killed me, because you are so busy trying to control. Did y'all even realize that you injected me twice in one day? Like that shouldn't be illegal, and as I wrote and I put that on their website, like I did a review talking about what this was like, took a picture of the back of my head, and was like, they are allowing medically sanctioned abuse of the people that are going into those facilities. And so it doesn't even matter if there's like one good nurse on staff or one good orderly that's going to hold your hand. That's not enough to make a difference in the system that they are just getting a paycheck from. So you need people that are willing to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't want to be the reason that somebody gets, hurt. And I found out that one of the people that I was in there with, we recognized each other. We grew up in the same, I'm from the border. So I'm from Del Rio on the border. And he happened to be from that same town. Months after he got released, there was a domestic violence incident where he was a perpetrator. And if they were really listening to what he was saying while he was in that facility, they would have known that was going to be a possibility. And instead, they released him back to the population, in which there was something drastic that happened to somebody else in their life. So they're not even listening to the people that are telling them, I'm not okay. I am in a place of like revenge, right? Like I checked myself in here because I tried to take my own existence away. And I
don't trust
am not
myself.
okay.
I want to be here.
Yes. And instead they released him. And that's what I'm saying is, even when there's times where you should have kept the person a little bit longer and helped them get into what it is, how to cope correctly, how to be in actual skills that they needed built that they never had, because he was from a background of dealing with a lot of the kind of underhanded things that can happen in a border town. And so he never learned those types of skills. And so those are the skills that he could have benefited from and been taught. And those are not, I mean, they are very surface level on their skill building in the groups that I was in. And I was vocal about it to the point where when they asked you to raise your hand, they were telling me to put my hand down, right? Like they were like, we don't want to hear it anymore, because I was challenging what they were saying in the group. Because I was like, hey, I've learned this stuff too. And I don't think that that's truly what this person needs or what I need. Is not, are we learning our love language, right? The question you should be asking is, do we even know how to love? And how do we love ourselves?
Thank you. Exactly.
And instead they were like, let's talk about whether you appreciate being given gifts. And I'm like, that's not going to help this person.
It's
like
such surface level stuff. It's so artificial, and it's very surface level. Like just how to identify a diagnosis, not the process that it takes to identify, to accept the grieving, to grow, to heal, to identify where some things may have came from. Is this nature versus nurture? Like there's so much more. There's so much more when it comes to mental health. I mean, our brains are such a powerful tool, and when it needs to be healed or some attention, drugs are not going to fix it. And just pointing to a word on the book is not going to be enough either. I really appreciate everything that you just said. I want to ask you just with as a final question, because you've already told me like the lessons that you learned that we all needed to learn about this situation. So thank you for that, because we all need to pay attention and be more held, be more accountable and aware. Like we all have a responsibility to each other. We really do. And I love that that police officer was also used from the inside to identify a problem and want to help, because I mean that is really powerful. That really is powerful. But I want to ask you, what part of your story do you feel that other women need to hear most right now, especially those who may be struggling with their own growth and identity? Because you seem to, you kind of known yours this whole time, but what would you tell a woman she's struggling, she has a hard time? What would you say to her? What part of your story would you feel that other people needed to hear for sure?
You're stronger than you think you are. We are able to be real with ourselves and with other people when we start being honest with what we've experienced from a place that is not even judging yourself. Don't judge how you reacted to something. Don't judge who you let into your life that came in and hurt you. That was you looking for connection in the wrong places, and in connecting to yourself. There's not anybody that can tell you differently. There's nobody that you're going to depend on more than yourself and your belief in God, or your ability to understand that this world was built on something that is destructive, not in healing. But that doesn't mean that there isn't love and light in the world, and that you don't get to be that, even in the darkest of spaces, when you're alone and cold and curled up, because I did. When I went into that place of being in that first time in isolation, I curled up in the corner and was like rocking myself, like I had done when I was a kid, when I was hiding from the world, when I was hiding in my closet, when I was afraid and there wasn't an adult there to hold me. I went right back into that. I went into regression, and I realized, oh wait, I'm not 9 anymore. I'm not 5 anymore. I'm gonna be 36. Like I don't have to have the same responses. I don't have to be in the same mindset of I was not worthy enough to stay out of a place like this, or just stay out of danger or darkness. It
Right.
just is dark, and you're able to be the light. Like that's what we all are supposed to be for each other, right? There's a part of my belief that I see the soul as the light in us all, and that's what truly connects us. It's not these meat suits that we're in, or what our experiences are, or what place in life that we were given. It's how you use it and what you do with it. And an awareness that we all go back into the ground, right, from dust to dust. And
Yep.
so what really unites us is our ability to understand that every person in the world has something truly to give to it. And it doesn't have to be something big. It can be something like you just succeeded in getting out of what was the toxic place of your family. Like what it was to just
Yes.
exist and create a new world. And that's the beauty of you getting to experience your story that's being written, is just allow yourself the pain and the suffering from a place that truly connects you to the understanding that there's nobody that understands that more than who put us here. And
Yes.
we don't have to keep demeaning each other based on whether we got school or no school, or what our skin color is, or what our faith is. It's none of our business on what somebody else's identity is to them. It is our business to help them be loved in the world as they are. And if they're
Yes.
lost, you can be that person that is leaving the breadcrumbs. You don't have to judge. You can just be like, hey, I left you a little present behind me over there. Like, just by telling your story, and that gets more people's attention than I think women especially really realize, because we've always been told to be quiet, right? Like if we were experiencing something that was hurtful, sexually or emotionally, we were told it's better to be quiet because you're going to be looked at in a certain way, and what were you wearing when this happened?
Right.
And that is actually how we've been stripped of our power as women, like, and it continues to happen out in the world. So if there's a woman out there listening that doesn't know how to get out of where she is, just start to believe that you can, like that you have it in you, that the tools are already there. You
Yes.
just you just need to remember how to open the window instead of the door, you know.
Okay, look, amen. For the people in the back. Like, yes, I think it's always interesting that, I mean, you are a living example of how powerful women are. It's like, yes, they tell us to be quiet. They tell us to sit down, to just be seen and not heard, and, to be submissive. But women don't understand that there's strength in being submissive. There's strength in being quiet. There's strength in just being obedient. And we have to understand that we're not being obedient to the people that we're looking at. You're being obedient to God. And that's a whole different level when you realize what you're doing and who you are. Because let's be true, sister. Let's be truthful. Okay. Who's doing all the work? It's us. They're very focused. I love them. Okay. God did a good job, but we are the helpmeet for a reason. There's so much that we do that does not get acknowledgement, and that's just behind the scenes, but it is vital. It is vital. So we should never feel the way that the world makes us feel at all. We're very powerful people. And thank you for telling that, not just that little girl, the teenager, the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old, the one in their 60s. You just told her that you're stronger than you think at all points. And it's okay. It's absolutely okay. It's just like, don't beat yourself up because you just didn't know. But now you know, because she just told you, and I second that notion. So it's going to be a better day. It's going to be a new day. I am grateful that you were here today. I'm so ecstatic about you sharing your story and that smile and the fact that we have you to count on as leadership, Kristie. You mean the world to so many more people. The people that you touched in that room and the ones that you are touching right now. I'm honored to have you on the show, and I'm just so excited to see the ripple effects. Like, of course, you're never going to see all the hearts that you're changing, but know that it's changing in real time. So I just wondered, is there anything that you want to say last before we close?
Something that helps me get through as a leader is, even if I can help one person, then I've succeeded in my mission in the world. So I appreciate just getting to be here with you and knowing that we met at a time in which was fresh for me out of this realization of who I am, and that you saw something that I really truly appreciate getting to hear your experience and your light and your struggles and your blessings that you've been given. And I'm grateful just to get to know Pennie as Pennie, and thank you for allowing me to share this space with you and your listeners. And I hope that we get to see each other around more often, and that people are not afraid to say hi if they see me out in the world. And if they need help, hey, I'm here.
Totally. They're going to be thinking they're so biased. Like, I see them together all the time. It's like, you just happen to be that way. There's one thing that you said that I definitely want to end this show off of that I want the women especially to hear, is that you started your story off in a sense, and you even ended it in a little bit where you kind of said, well, like I didn't fight. Oh, yes, you did. Oh, yes, you did. You fought with your heart. You fought with your mouth, your mind, the strategic play. Like, you fought the way that we should. It looks one way, but it's totally something else happening. And all you did was fight. All you did, you fought for your life, and everyone else is in there. So yeah, I'm sure everybody at work, they probably looking at you just like, when did Kristie get boxing gloves? Like, when you walk down the hallway, they probably hear the Tiger's Eye Rocky music and stuff. Like, did you hear that? I think that's her. You think her phone's playing? Like, it's a whole different world. I know that you are not the same Kristie from before this situation. It's impossible to be. Like, absolutely impossible to be. But I am ecstatic that I got to meet you. And I guess I feel kind of, interested. I wish I got to meet you before the situation, but this Kristie right here, I love. So sorry I didn't get to meet her, but I definitely got to meet you. I definitely got to meet you. So, ladies, that is this wrap for This with Pennie on Tuesday. I want you to tune in next week's show where another woman's journey awaits. And like I said, this is where we keep it real with real women, real stories, real life, real faith, real leadership. Are you a woman in leadership, business, ministry, or community, and you have an impactful story that just needs to be heard? We are listening because your journey could inspire, uplift, or empower another woman's walking in their purpose. I am inviting passionate, purpose-driven women to be featured here on With Pennie on Tuesdays, a faith-centered leadership podcast that creates space for honest conversation. And you see how real this one was. Spiritual alignment and authentic storytelling. This is your story. Therefore, only you can tell where you are on your journey and what your soul needs to express. The topics you get to choose from are your journey to purpose, the moments that have shaped you, vision and calling, the future that feels led to create that you just can't even fight from, your purpose and action, the work, your mission, the impact that you are building, and honoring the wins, because we want to recognize your growth and your breakthroughs and your blessings. We have these on Tuesdays. We air the shows between 3 and 4 p.m. So you get to see Miss Kristie in the few. Like I said, this is more than a podcast. This is a movement and sisterhood where truth and purpose rises. So the real question is, are you ready to be real? I will leave the link in the description below. And thank you for coming. And thank you for watching. This was amazing. Yes. I absolutely love it.